So this is what sci-fi tends to consider to be artificial intelligence, and this is what computer scientists oftentimes show as their artificial intelligence. And basically what I want to do today is get a mapping from one to the other. And so it's going to be a little bit messy because it has to be a little bit messy. But that's basically what we're going to be doing today. So as a starting point, we previously did AlexNet in AR. So it makes sense to kind of continue with that. And so with that, we just had these layers that you have from these machine learning papers, and we kind of plotted those in augmented reality. So we had a set of planes. And so the first step that we're going to need to do is convert these planes into spherical-like geometry, because that's what we're trying to convert it to or transform it to. So it's actually fairly easy to map flat textures onto spheres and also sections of spheres. One of the mistakes that I did with this first example is that the heights and widths are all messed up. So they're really, that's something that I have to fix. Also, they are all not yellow, and they are all not bloomy, and they are also not rotating exactly how I would like them to. So we'll work on that. You get AlexNet converted into spherical geometry. And so this is kind of like Jarvis. It's maybe a little bit of like a wish Jarvis, but once again, this isn't actually showing everything. It's not showing any of the data manipulation or any, this is a static image. So if you had to include any of that, you might be able to make that stuff, if you had to include any of the connections or the kind of intermediary steps, you might end up being able to make that a little bit prettier, and you might end up making it look more like Jarvis. And there are things where the visualization of Jarvis responds to stimulus, which kind of implies that it's not the static image or the static weights of Jarvis. It's like changing weights, and so we haven't done anything with that. So, but I think it's a fun first step, and it's just a fun thing to play around with. It also kind of shows, one thing this does kind of highlight is there's a lot of difficulties that come up with alpha channels and transparency in 3JS. So a lot of times when you start mixing transparency, sometimes you end up with this weird opaque transparency. And so I was able to get the transparency working in just the raw AlexNet, but once I started adding in some of these bloom features and things, it'd have to take quite a bit of work to get our transparency back that we lost throughout those steps. So we'd previously done bloom before. You basically just have to change a few aspects of the shaders that are included with 3JS, and it's not so difficult. Okay, onto the code. Basically, we have a set of layers and meshes, and we just have these arrays, and you have to load up a layer name, so that'll allow us to retrieve the image file or the texture. And then we have these meshes, and these are going to be functions that output meshes, and they will have the height and width that we will load up once we've gotten the images. So basically, we're just cutting these spheres so that they will be the correct size for the textures. So we are doing the cut after we actually have that information. Next up, we have to create the function that happens once we've loaded these textures. So each one of these textures has this image, and then we have to do all the stuff with what we're modifying the image to be like. There's some stuff that we have to do with bloom, so we are going to have to change that. And then we also do the color changing here as well. And then after that, it's a very straightforward adding all these textures to the scene. And once it's all loaded up, then we just have to add a little flag that animates it so that we just change these parameters each time around. And that's about it. So have a good day.